Hi everyone and welcome back to Dark Hollow. Tonight I'm going to tell you about the legend of Black Aggie. Now, Black Aggie is the name given in folklore to a statue that was an unauthorized replica of sculptor Augustus Saint Gaudens's figure, popularly called Grief, and it stands at Adams Memorial in Rock Creek Cemetery in Washington, D.C. Black Aggie was rendered by Edward Ludwig Albert Posch, a Danish-American sculptor noted for his war memorials. So where does the legend begin? Well, let's start with the original. Augustus Saint Gaudens was an American painter and sculptor who was born March 1st, 1848, and died August 3rd, 1907. He was born in Ireland and was brought to America as an infant by his parents. He apprenticed in New York and later went to Paris, where he studied under Geoffroy and pardon me, but I do not speak French, but it was several influential art schools in France. He then went on to Italy for the next 3 years, where he created some of his first works, such as Hiawatha, Sight and Silence. He later created a statue of Admiral Farragut in New York and soon gained fame for his work. Gaudens was commissioned by Henry Adams, a prominent writer and historian, to sculpt a memorial for his wife, Clover Hooper Adams, who had committed suicide in 1885 by potassium cyanide poisoning. Adams paid the artist handsomely for his original creation, made solely for his wife. It took Gaudens 4 years to unveil his unprecedented masterpiece, Grief, or The Peace of God and Death, in 1891. It was placed in the Adams plot in Rock Creek Cemetery, Washington, D.C. In 1906, Felix Agnes, a Civil War Union brigadier general and a prominent newspaper man in Baltimore, Maryland, first working as the business manager of Baltimore America and later founding the Baltimore Star, hired an artist by the name of Edward L.A. Posch to recreate the statue for his family plot. But rather than creating something original, the artist was said to have partially modeled Gaudens' statue for his recreation. When Posch presented the new art to General Agnes, he was elated. He placed it in the family plot at the Druid Ridge Cemetery in Baltimore, Maryland in 1907. And, of course, this didn't go unnoticed by the widow of Gaudens. She saw the copy for herself and noted that the statue was the same, albeit a few changes, and wrote to Agnes. She informed him of the poor imitation that was placed at the Druid Ridge Cemetery for his family. By then, the artist of the original statue had recently passed on. Gaudens' widow hired a lawyer to convince Agnes to remove the counterfeit or she would sue him. In the end, it was hard for the widow to prove her case, and Agnes kept the statue in the family plot. Later, in 1925, the general died at age 86. He was buried at the foot of his beloved statue along with his wife. And soon after his death, the legend was born. Stories began to circulate about the cursed statue, and with the stories came the name. It's said that the statue that sits in Druid Cemetery takes on a more ominous presence at night. Legend says her eyes burn red at the stroke of midnight, and for those who were unlucky enough to have gazed upon those eyes were struck dead or blind by sitting upon her lap was believed to invite suffering, death, or calamity. Pregnant women have been known to lose the unborn child after simply passing through the shadow of Black Aggie. One story is about a fraternity dare during Hell Week. One new frat boy pledged to stay the night at Druid Ridge Cemetery and sleep at the foot of the infamous Aggie. The young man was familiar with the stories surrounding the statue, but he was not superstitious. He scoffed at such tales and willingly went along with the pledge. The frat brothers followed him out while it was still daylight. Upon reaching Aggie, the statue seemed harmless enough. The boys sat around laughing and joking. But as the sun began to set, a nervous awareness enveloped the group of the frat brothers. They swiftly departed, leaving the new pledge alone in the cemetery. At the gates of Druid Ridge were locked. The sweeping flashlight of the passing security guard scanned the tombstones. The young man hid among them, avoiding detection. He sat among the silence of the graves, perhaps looking around, perhaps avoiding the statue's gaze. What is known is that at midnight a blood-curdling scream was heard from somewhere among the tombstones. When the security officer found the young man, he was dead, lying at the foot of Black Abbey. A look of wide-eyed terror filled his face. His mouth was agape in a frozen scream. Something had terrified the youth to death. Another story was of some friends who went to see the famous statue during the day. One man scoffed at the rumors and put out his cigarette on Aggie's hand. When his friend warned him of the danger, he chuckled and waved him away. He was later found dead. In 1962, one of Black Aggie's arms went missing. Apparently, it had been cut off with a hacksaw. Later, the missing limb was discovered in the trunk of a man's car, along with a saw he used to steal the arm. Later, he claimed the statue made him do it while he was depressed. Eventually, the arm was replaced and the statue remained at Druid Ridge. Still, word of the evil statue brought more and more thrill seekers, and problems with vandals soon became an issue, as it always does. Even the grounds around the tomb seemed to be cursed, as the grass refused to grow there. The constant barrage of unwelcome visitors overwhelmed the cemetery, and it was decided that the statue would be removed. In 1967, the Agnes family donated Aggie to the Smithsonian Institute, where she sat in mute darkness in storage. The institute never displayed her. She was then given to another art institute, where she sat in storage once more. Years later, a reporter was researching the story of Black Abbey. While going through his history, the reporter became aware of the location of the statue. It had been moved to its final resting place in the courtyard of the Dolly Madison House on Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. The infamous statue now sits among the foliage and beauty, where she is a permanent resident. So, the legend is short, but I don't know. There's something inherently creepy about, a statue. And, of course, if the statue is kind of creepy, then people are automatically going to make up legends and Of course, there's no, paper trail or anything like that. It's usually always a friend who, or it's always, second hand or third hand. And 9 times out of 10, you're not going to find a quote unquote witness, because obviously, if the curse were real, then there would be no witness. So, I don't know. It's, like I said, under curses and things like that, who knows? I know not to tempt fate, even though if I don't believe in them, I'm not going to take the chance. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and if you like these creepy tales of folklore and curses and legends, hit that subscribe button and that like button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out a whole lot. See you in the shadows.